Challenger cards are a new element coming in the chapter-approved mission deck 2025 to 2026. They replace the secret missions and the gambits from previous decks. This is a shared deck of 9 cards. At the start of the battle round, the player with the lowest victory points, if the difference in victory points is at least 6, will get to draw one of these cards at the start of their command phase. That player becomes known as the Challenger. I'm going to call them the Underdog because Age of Sigmar calls them the Underdog, and lots of other game systems have the term Underdog. There are 2 sides to it. One side gives you an easy to score mission, the other side gives you a free stratagem. The victory points you get from completing this mission doesn't count towards your maximum primary or secondary mission, but it is part of the maximum 90 victory points that you can score from missions. The maximum you get from any of these tertiary missions is 3 victory points. That's not too bad, and you have to be 6 victory points behind at least before you get one. They are generally very easy to complete. Here are 2 examples from the Reddit leaks. Have one of your units not within 18 inches of an enemy unit. If you can get one of your units to hide in a corner of the board, you get some victory points. Or another example, one of your units cannot be within 15 inches of another one of your units. So again, you would hide one of your units in a corner of the board. Or if you're able to deep strike a unit in the enemy's deployment zone that turn, and the rest of your army is not nearby, that works. Pretty easy to do. I am not very concerned by 3 victory points, or you get 2 victory points maybe from zone defense. If it swings a game by 1 victory point, it was already going to be a game with 1 victory point difference. I don't think that would feel too bad. It is basically a draw. Looking over my past 8 games, the victory points difference at the end was 12 to 18 victory points. The same player would have to be the underdog for 4 battle rounds and get max victory points from it every turn. I expect there will be people annoyed at the idea of some free victory points. I just can't relate. It's the primary and secondary missions that are going to be the main thing that win the game. Once we have played more games with these cards, and I'm looking forward to it, I think people will see that they add a fun element to the game. Age of Sigmar's Spearhead uses cards almost exactly like this in a very similar way. Either extra victory points for completing a mission for the underdog, or you have an extra ability. Age of Sigmar has an underdog mechanic, and I haven't heard any Age of Sigmar players complain that it breaks the game. It is generally seen as a positive inclusion so that someone isn't getting entirely stomped, and there's a much smaller difference between victory points at the end. It feels like a more close-fought game. I am more concerned about the stratagem side of the Challenger cards than the victory point side. With a good stratagem, you can swing way more victory points, because the primary and secondary missions give you more victory points. If you have something extra to achieve them, then you start to snowball your score. And oh wait, now you're getting a free thing that is eating into that 12 to 18 victory point difference. Do you remember the Exigency Stratagems? There's a link up there and below the description if you don't and want to check them out. These were near free stratagems and all very powerful. I think we may now have something similar in mainstream 40k. We have stratagems like grenades, but for everyone? Tyranids with grenades? It's called Opportunistic Strike. You pick an enemy unit within 6 inches of one of your units, you roll 6d6, for every 4+, that's a mortal wound. It's basically the same as grenades, except you can advance and do it, or you can fall back and use it. If your army didn't have access to advance and charge, but you're a very combat-focused army, if you get Pivotal Moment, one of your units can advance and charge, or fall back and charge, if the enemy was tying you up just to stop you from shooting. Now your shooty unit can fall back and still shoot. I'm not going to read them all out and then rank them for danger. It'll all depend on your army and the tactics you have available. Maybe the stratagem you get isn't quite suited to your situation or your army. That's maybe where you would try and score the victory point side of it. But I want to focus on the stratagems, and I want this to be a think piece, discussion piece, rather than a list of all the stratagems. As a Genestealer cult player, I am currently most fond of the Host of Ascension. This is a detachment that lets the enemy score in the first and second turns before the big swing reversal as my units come in and cause a lot of damage devastating the enemy army and allowing me to take the primary and secondary missions almost unopposed, if the plan goes correctly. From Battle Round 2, as long as my opponents score decently on their secondaries in the first battle round, I will have another strong stratagem available for free from the second battle round to do that, to complete my supermassive strike. So if I have a unit that deploys from reserves and it's a combat unit, I have Our Time Is Nigh as an enhancement to make the charge easier. But what if I had a burst of speed, so I could move D6 after arriving from Deep Strike? I turn up, in the shooting phase, I move D6 inches, which doesn't prevent me from charging. This is essentially a 3d6 plus 2-inch charge. I'm gonna make that 9-inch charge. Burst of speed would also let a unit embark in a transport. If I was playing Battle Sisters, Dominions get out of a Rhino. They shoot. With a burst of speed, they make a normal move to embark back inside the Rhino. You're only prevented from getting back inside the transport if the same unit got out of it earlier that phase. And you can use this burst of speed stratagem as long as you haven't moved that phase, the shooting phase. Luck is required to draw it, but if I got renewed focus, which allows me to reroll hit rolls and wound rolls of 1 in the shooting phase, that works for one of my shooting units not led by a Primus. A Benefactus, who gives the unit lethal hits, and because of the detachment rule I have sustained hits, and now I have some rerolls. That helps me to achieve the primary and secondary missions and damage the enemy to reduce their ability to score in future. That's going to be more valuable than 2 to 3 more victory points. This isn't a catch-up mechanic. This is all part of my plan, a plan generations in the making. Quick aside, these cards are available to pre-order tomorrow, the 24th of May. Check my affiliates that are in the description. See if they have the cards available for pre-order. They will have them cheaper than going through Games Workshop. While my Genestealer cult is doing their later strike, I play my Adeptus Sororitas in a similar way. Less about strategic reserves, but when the Seraphim drop, it's the turn I go. I can't usually hold objectives early in the game against the enemy army because I have toughness 3 bodies. That doesn't often allow me to be super tough. And the Adeptus Sororitas like short-range firepower. So if I let the enemy take the center of the board and then counterattack, that's my usual plan. Now I can expect more stratagems to do this. And towards the end of the game, when my opponent gets one, it may be too late to matter unless they are planning to then have a big swing in turn 5. These are really strong. But let's calm down. Why are these not so very broken? It is 1 random stratagem per battle round. There's a deck of 9. In the average game, 3 or 4 will be drawn. You can't plan your army around it. This isn't like knowing that Overwatch exists, so I will have some units with torrent weapons to take advantage of it. If Overwatch was random, and I didn't know if it was going to appear in the game at all, I wouldn't specialize a unit into it. Because you determine who is the underdog at the start of the battle round, and even if going second, you draw the card at the start of your command phase, you don't have time to set up to use the best stratagem on the best unit. It relies on getting very lucky that you happen to have the right unit, happens to be in the right position, and you happen to draw the right challenger card, which happens to have the right stratagem on it just for you to use at that exact moment for it to perfectly have all of the stars align. If you're planning on that being the plan, your plan may also be, I'm going to roll lots of 6s to win the game. I can't sit a unit behind cover 8 inches away from an objective in Battle Round 3 because I know that in Battle Round 4 I'm getting Opportunistic Strike, so that with a 6-inch move, and advancing and an extra G6, I know I can guarantee moving onto that objective. I don't know that in Battle Round 3 I won't score well enough my opponent ends up being the underdog. You can't forward plan to use these stratagems. You can't keep hold of these cards for a later turn. You can only use them in your turn. At the end of the turn, you discard it. If I drew the perfect card in Battle Round 2 for my unit that's coming from reserves in Battle Round 3, I can't use it on them. I have to pick a less optimal unit, or discard the challenger card at the end of my second turn. I'm sorry I used rationality and I'm calling for calm. I'm sorry this commentary isn't. It's broken. 10th edition is over. Burn everything. Games Workshop is done. Ah! The Warhammers has ended! You need to know that if you leave a comment that says, it's broken, 10th edition is over, people who haven't got this far in the video will think you are serious. Decide if you want to take your chances, or hope that someone replies, yes, burn everything, Games Workshop is done. Stratagems are not everything. I have played with detachments that have very poor stratagems and been able to win. I plan to make a video on these detachments very soon, unless that video is already here. In the meantime, I have an upcoming live stream you may be interested in. I would appreciate your comments on challenger cards in the comments. Have a great day of 40k.